absolutely dominant in their first group game from later in the match. In the meantime, Bufori, that's clever. Godos gets the cross here. It's a fabulous goal. It really is.
The delivery. Great little clip delivery. Van Lam's in no man's land. Nothing he can do about that.
They start out from the back. Better from them though. It wasn't to that final pass. May well reach Azmoun. Still Azmoun buries it. He is deadly in front of goal. Maybe a little fortunate the way it reached him, but once it did, there was only one place it was going. Well, full time in Abu Dhabi, a very satisfactory 90 minutes to Iran, who maintained their 100% record in this tournament. Carlos Queiroz' side too strong for Park Hang-seo's men today.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Gol Bezan, the 2019 AFC Asian Cup in the UAE is well underway. Iran started their campaign earlier this week with a 5-0 win against Yemen and followed that up with a 2-0 beating of Vietnam. So today we have on the pod to discuss the regular contributor of Gol Bezan, Arya Allahverdi, and we're also joined by Morteza Moussavi from Radio Offside, and he's joining us from Vancouver. Morteza, how are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing pretty well, thanks.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and Radio Offside and what you guys do?
Well, as I said before, thank you so much, and I wanted to thank you guys on behalf of our team. We're just a group of friends who are interested in football, and we started our work off focusing on the World Cup games during last summer, and then we switched gear a little bit after the games ended, and now we're producing weekly pods focusing on the top 4 European football leagues and the Champions League.
That's great.
So it's Radio Offside, and it's in Farsi though.
Fantastic, given the Iranian audience, something they don't have, which is great. Right, so let's get started and talk about the game. So, Morteza, why don't I start with you? So we looked at, in my opinion, a game of two halves yesterday. I think Iran started off pretty well in the first half, controlled the game, some really good passing, really good 1-2 touch passing, some good triangles, linking up midfield to attack very well. The second half, I think some of that fell out the window. Would you agree with that? Did you see two contrasting halves yesterday as well?
Yes, I did see that, and I think some parts of it is due to the game plan that the Vietnamese had. So in the first half, they just dropped deep and then stayed back and, as we call it, parked the bus, which made us struggle a little bit to find the first goal, but we still played our own game and then had the position. And then in the second half, when they had conceded the first goal, they started off pushing a little bit higher, which could be the reason behind the more sloppy performance in the second half. However, I think I just wanted to appreciate our performance in the sense that we showed a lot of respect for the other team, even though, looking at the history of our games, the game against Vietnam has always been an easy game. But regarding their first performance against Iraq, I think the coaching team and the staff, they knew that it's going to be a hard game. And whenever we lost position, which one great thing that I saw, especially in the first half, that we had a lot of position. We had a lot of position in the second half as well, but it was more prominent in the first half. Whenever we lost the ball, position of the ball, we had 2 or 3 players in the immediate vicinity of the ball who pressed for getting the ball back. And then if that line did not work, we just had another line deeper. So that counter pressing was really good. But as I said, I think it's just the game plan that the Vietnamese had in the second half was something that caused us to stumble a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Vietnamese did start off quite well and they defended with their lives, particularly in the first half. Now, Arya, do you think that perhaps Team Melli could have put the game to bed inside 45 minutes?
Yeah, I think they could have. We had a few chances in the first half. I think Someone got into the game a little bit later on in the first half. Yeah, he started off a little bit quiet, but when he came alive, especially near the end of the first half and then the beginning of the second half, we sort of saw us make a couple more chances. I think in that sort of period, we could have scored some goals. If you saw the last game against Yemen, Torabi started on the left-hand side and he was playing pretty central, quite close to Osman. In this game, we saw him play on the right wing, and he was, he started off quite wide. I think he was basically playing as a traditional winger, and he wasn't really getting into the box as much as we saw against Yemen. I think that could have maybe Osman was a bit isolated at times, but of course he scored 2 goals, which I think he did really well to create for himself, and get the angles, get into the right position to score the goal. I think he did really well to sort of create the goals himself. However, I would like to have seen Amiri, offer something more in the attack. I thought, he's came off in the last 2 games, in the second half quite early on, and he's not really given us enough in the attack. I would have liked to have maybe seen Torabi start in midfield. Hopefully we see something like that against Iraq. But no, I think we started off the game a bit quiet. Vietnam were defending really, really well. Then they started to maybe get a bit tired. We scored the goal, and then in the second half they changed the setup. But again, Osmo scored, and he got the game wrapped up. And I think 2-0 was a respect. It's a good scoreline for against a team like Vietnam, who are young, they're hungry, they're probably in their best footballing generation, and I was quite impressed by them a lot actually, and against Iraq as well in their first game.
I would agree with that, with the fact that I think Osman took his second goal in particular very well. Some good feet to dodge 2 tackles and a good little finish with his left foot, as we've seen before. He's right-footed, but he can score with both feet, and we all know how good he is in the air and how many headers he got, as shown by the first goal. Now, I think if we look at what I was referring to, in the sense that I think we could have put the game to bed early in the first half. Were you impressed, Morteza, by some of that last-ditch defending by the Vietnamese, particularly their captain, with some of the blocks and putting the ball on his body on the line?
Yes, they were pretty good. It actually reminded me of our own performance in the World Cup and how we were defending really greatly as a unit. It's still a big jump trying to compare the 2 performances, but they did really well, and they were all coordinated really well as well, their performance in the first half, but still they lacked that a little bit of quality, I guess. But I really liked how they performed defensively. I was really impressed.
Yeah, you could definitely say that Iran could have been, if it wasn't for for the Vietnamese captain, it could have been probably about 3-0 in the first half. And in that first half, I thought our passing was excellent. As I said earlier, 1-2 touch passing, quick triangles, getting in between the lines, linking up play very, very nicely between midfield and attack. And 2 players that I want to highlight in particular with regards to that nice link and play are Salman Qudus, who in my opinion was the man of the match and provided a great assist, a great cross for Osman's first goal in the 38th minute, and his play with Ashkan Dejagah, who I personally must say I previously didn't think he should be in the Iran squad anymore. I think he's aging, but he does offer something that a lot of players don't. And on that point, we're going to bring in Sahand Salari, who's one of our callers today and is his first time on the pod. He's a Team Melli fan from Northern California. Sahand, welcome to the pod. It's really good to have you on now. Would you agree with the point that you saw some good link-up play between Dejagah and Qudus, and what do you think stood out? What stood out for you in an attacking sense, particularly in the first half in yesterday's game?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having me on. So yesterday I thought that in the first half especially we did, as you guys mentioned, played really well. And I think a lot of that had to do with the link-up play of the forward players, particularly Dejagah, Qudus, Azmoun, and Taremi, as you said. And, I think a good point to make is that although Dejagah is getting older, and we didn't really see him at all in the World Cup, a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was coming off a major injury that he sustained when he was at Nottingham Forest, and it was very hard for him to recover from that injury. But I think now he's been at Traktor Sazi for the whole year, and he's been at least playing every week and training regularly with the team, which is already an upgrade from being injured for almost 6 months. And so he's in good physical shape that you can see that. And then his quality on the pitch, it just speaks for itself. This is a guy who won the Bundesliga, who's played in the Champions League, who played in Germany's probably their most successful youth team ever with a bunch of world champions, and was a starter in that lineup with the likes of Ozil, Boateng, and those kind of players, Neuer. So he has, undeniable quality. And on the pitch, you see that he's dropping deep now for Team Melli. He's getting the ball from deep, and he's able, because of his technical quality, to always be playing with his head up, which very few Iranian players can do. And, his first touch in particular just takes him away from the, Asian players, Asian opponents, in a way that very few players are able to do. And you can see that him and Qudus, their first touch and their movement with the ball is just of a different class. And then that's how they, they link up so well together. And even Qudus was mentioning in his post-match interview how influential Dejagah is. And you could see in the link-up between Dejagah and Azmoun and Taremi that they're really all around kind of the same wavelength, and they're able to play quick 1-2s and just dictate the tempo, and particularly Dejagah from the back. And, with regards to what you guys were mentioning with the disparity between the first and the second half performance, I think a lot of that had to do with Dejagah himself, because in the first half, you saw that Dejagah was very influential. He was on the ball throughout, and he was really dictating the play. And in the second half, that kind of dropped off. I don't know. I have a feeling this had to do with the heat, which a lot of the players mentioned, and the fact that, even though he is more fit now, Dejagah is still probably not a player that you would expect to be at at the same high level throughout the 90 minutes more. And as his performance dropped off, that in turn affected the whole team. And we were less able to, control the game at the same pace that we had in the first half. But yeah, I think that the link up between Dejagah and Qudus and Azmoun and Taremi is really what we're going to build on offensively throughout the next rounds, and that's going to be the key to our success.
And just to add to that, I felt like Taremi and Azmoun, who have been playing for a while on Team Melli together, they're a lot more synchronized than when Salman Qudus is added to the trio. So I felt like in order to get the balls, Qudus had to drop deeper and then get the ball himself. But the link up between Taremi and Azmoun was great, but at times Qudus was not involved in that link up as much. So I'm hoping that as the games go by and then as we progress through the tournament, the three of them would be more synchronized. And if that happens, it'll be great.
You've both raised some very good points, and on the point of Dejagah, it's clear that getting that regular first team football that he's been lacking over several seasons, even since his time at Fulham in 2013, is really helping him out. I mean, we forget he's only 32, really. I mean, he's in the autumn of his career, of course, but he still has clearly has something to offer, which I personally didn't think. But that first team football is definitely helping him out. Now, Arya, what was noticeable in yesterday's game is the difference in passing accuracy in the first and in the second half. We string some really good passes together in the first half. I think we lost a lot of that passing accuracy in the second half. Throughout the game we had a passing accuracy of, it's quite relatively good, of 84%. Could probably be better. I think it was probably better in the first half. Now, if any of our listeners have any statistics on the first half and the second half passing accuracy, please tweet us. We'd love to see what the difference was there. And Arya, do you think that Dejagah maybe getting a bit tired, and also us dropping off a little bit perhaps, had some influence on that, on the lower level of passing accuracy in the second half?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say, Sahand, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate your insight. Next thing I want to say, yeah, of course, to answer your question, yeah, the passing accuracy. First of all, we had, I think it was 70% possession in the game, in the entire match, and we did dominate possession for long periods. I think you could see in the second half, you're right, Dejagah started to gas out a little bit. He played 90 minutes against Yemen at really high tempo, and then obviously another really high tempo match against Vietnam. He gassed out. He was misplacing a few passes. I think that we were relying on him to keep the ball ticking. And unfortunately, he was, slowing down. His passing accuracy was coming, much more, more failures of making a successful pass. And I think that it was evident because, Godus came into the game more when Dejagah fell out of it. And I think when Godus came on the ball, we saw a bit more from him. But I think by then the players were exhausted. Osman, started to sort of fade near the end of the match. Torab came on. He gave us some, attacking emphasis. He ran. He got on the ball, gave the assist for Osman. But yeah, I think we have to make sure that our players are 100% fit throughout the whole tournament, because Queiroz is demanding a lot from these players. You can see on the touchline, he's shouting. He wants them to really play at high intensity, because he knows when it comes to the final, these players need to be ready for it. And I think that players like Dejagah, like Shojai, they're not at the kind of age where they can play 90 minutes, consistently, with a 4-day absence, in between. I think, but he wants them to get to that level because they are the only players who have that kind of skill level that some of our younger players don't have at the moment. So it's a bit of a task for Queiroz to get the best out of his players, but he's rested a couple of players. Rezayan didn't play, and I think that we've got a chance to really rest a couple of players, maybe against Iraq. Abaid Amiri, he's played 2 90-minute games. The only guy I think you can't really bench at the moment is Omid Ebrahimi, who had a really good game against Vietnam. I thought he played quite well. The ball was ticking, but he's played 2 90-minute games, and it's hard to replace him because Cyrus Atullah is injured. So, I hope that the fitness levels are not an issue as the tournament goes on.
Yeah, that definitely is the case. We've been unfortunate with the case of Said Toloi, who's now at Reading, with his injury. We don't really have anyone like him who can both sit deep and protect the defenders, and at the same time spread play quite nicely. And on this point, I want to bring in another one of our callers. We have Sarah Fatemi, Iranian American, fellow TM fan, a Team Melli fan, and stand-up comedian. Sarah, thanks for coming on. It's great to have you. What were your thoughts on the game?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what were your thoughts on the game, Sarah? Did you enjoy the game? What were the particular highlights for you, do you think, and takeaway points?
I enjoyed the game a lot. Very aggressive, very offensive. I don't know if this is a kind of a tactic switch, but I've never seen our boys play so aggressively before. My favorites, obviously, were the 2 goals, especially the goal that Osman hit with his head. And I also really liked the save that Beiran Van did right in the beginning. Did you guys see kind of that somersault? He kind of leapt in and he grabbed that ball.
Yeah, it was a good save. I mean, it was a 1-0 at this point, so it could have changed the match. I
think you're right. I think you can see that was one of the only defensive errors we've had in a couple of years. Against a really poor team. We managed to make a mistake against quite a weak team, but against Spain and Portugal in the World Cup, we didn't really have that kind of error. So yeah, you're right.
My God, yeah, that man, Beran Vand is a wall. I mean, there you try to get anything past him, but I couldn't believe that, the way he just kind of rolled on the ground and then it slipped into his arms. That to me, that's some kind of, A-level talent.
Well, the man did save a penalty from Ronaldo in the World Cup against Portugal, so confidence must be sky high. But for sure, I mean, that's the thing. And Arya, you highlighted a very good point that I'd also like to come on, because the game wasn't entirely full of positives, I'd say. I think the first half was very good. We made some defensive errors, the particularly bad one that we just referred to with that resulted in the Beran Van save. But I think in the second half as well, it was a bit of a shambles. We are known for our tactical discipline, our defensive discipline, and the lack of goals that we concede. But I feel like against better opposition, we probably could have conceded a couple of goals yesterday. Do you think this is a concern, or do you think perhaps it's complacency because of the quality of the opposition yesterday? Because as you said, against Portugal, against Spain, we defended with our lives and didn't really make any errors.
Yeah, just before I come to your question, I think I want to ask one question to Sarah. Sarah, obviously Osmo scored 2 goals.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? Obviously, I think you've spoken to Osmo before, or you've had contact with him. What do you think this gives him? Because he's had a lot of criticism from fans in Iran. How do you think this helps him progress, in his career in the tournament?
Well, I think since, about around September, his confidence has really grown because he did so well at Rubin Kazan. He was scoring goals just about every game, and he was really becoming a hero. And I think people back in Iran were taking notice. And then especially after the AFC has started, I mean, I just think his confidence is just skyrocketing, and I couldn't be happier because we all know what a rough time he was going through. And now I think the only thing that we can really hope for, but then again, as fans, we respect his decision, is that hopefully after the AFC, he does leave Rubin Kazan and he does go into a larger team. I know he was in talks with, I believe, there was a team in England. Name is escaping me right now. I apologize. It's Sunday.
Crystal Palace, I think.
I have mascara running down my face. I'm trying to think of what the club is. But yeah, I mean, I think he has so much potential, and I think he's kind of outgrown Rubin Kazan at this point. And I think that he just really needs to challenge himself, and he really needs to. I mean, not that he's not challenging himself, but I really do think that, the opportunities are endless if he does take that bid, and if it does work out. And then waiting, a couple of years later for the next World Cup and just seeing him honestly dominate, regardless of who would be.
Palace would
coming on, Sarah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sarah. Really appreciate your insight.
For having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I think on that point, Sarah makes a good point. I think Palace would be a really good place to go for Osman. I think he's been linked with Everton before. He's been linked with Liverpool before. I don't think that he would get in the starting 11 at all for Liverpool, apart from maybe in some of the other competitions. Palace need a striker. Benteke hasn't been doing the job for them. That would be a good move, and we'd like to see him certainly move away from Rubin Kazan. It's time to leave Russia, I think. And on that note,
to your question.
Oh yeah, of course. Go on.
But yeah, the defense. I think we saw Hossein Kanani start. Hossein Kanani. I think I'll ask you a question more about him, but I think Kanani showed before the Asian Cup that he has good physicality, and I think that something that maybe Jalal Hosseini had, that those sort of players have in Iran, that he offers in Iran as well. I think, Majid Hosseini, he offers that physicality, that aggression. Kanani as well, I think he offers that. And I think that he showed it. He showed he can really impose himself on the game. He can win all the headers. He can really, I thought he was the better player than Purali Ganji in defence yesterday. I thought Purali Ganji had a bit of a rocky game. He made a few mistakes. One of the things that I saw from him was he wasn't attacking the ball in the air. He was letting the ball bounce, and at times that was causing issues with the goalkeeper and his fullback, Kafuri. So I hope that Purali Ganji doesn't continue that kind of form, because we want him to be on top form. I hope Majid Hosseini comes back into the fold as well at some point. and I hope that kind of continues how he's been playing. But Morteza, I want to ask you, Morteza. Yeah, go on, Sahand.
Yeah, if I could just interject here. I think the defensive contrast between, as you guys mentioned, versus in our games versus some top opponents in the World Cup, we really gave up very few chances, or real clear-cut chances. And we were playing some of the top teams in the world, whereas now we're seeing that even in the Yemen match and Vietnam match, we've given up some good looks to seemingly weaker teams. And I think this is, something that doesn't have actually. I think the root of this problem could actually be seen in the preparation matches. Even if you go back to the Uzbekistan, the first preparation match for the Asian Cup, and ever since then we've been letting a lot of chances, which is seemingly uncharacteristic for Team Melli. But the reason for this is, fairly simple, and it's that we are seeing a drastic change in the way that Team Melli plays. We played in the World Cup atmosphere and those games with a very defensive formation and a very defensive strategy because of necessity. There was no way we could go toe-to-toe or play open against, the best teams in the world, or else we'd get slaughtered. And because of that, we developed a very low defensive block with having wingers that were essentially playing as wing-backs for some of the games in the World Cup. Taremi and Sarifar Jahanbakhsh were so far deep and supporting their wing-backs, and the midfielders were deep supporting the center-backs. So, it was difficult for those players to get isolated and exposed. But now, as we open up and we're playing clearly a high-pressing sort of style, an attacking sort of style, which is resulting in more goals, but then we see that the defenders are going to be isolated in one-on-one situations at times, or in more dangerous situations with players running at them with space in behind, and that just goes to show that the defenders, although they are very good players, they're not at some of them aren't at the elite level that they can deal with those situations perfectly, and so we're going to give up some chances. I think that Vuriya Ghafouri, Ehsan Hajsafi, these are players that you wouldn't describe as the most solid defenders. And for that reason, there's going to be some, problems at times. And just, on that selection of Queiroz to play those two guys, I personally, one thing that has just escaped me is the reasoning for him to start Hajsafi these few games. And even in the World Cup, because we have Milad Mohammadi, who's been one of the best left backs in all of Russia for many years, and still a young player who defensively is much more solid. And I think that is one of the issues coming from the left side. We're conceding a lot of chances. So I think Milad may get some game time in the near future, and I wanted to know what you guys think about that.
Morteza, do you want to give your thoughts on those points?
Yeah.
Do you think that, in particular, we can now build upon that incredible defensive record that we have and now become a bit more of an attacking team as well, scoring a few more goals? We're so used to winning 1-0, 2-0, that it was, particularly against Yemen, it was refreshing to see 5 goals being scored. I can't remember the last time we saw more than 3 goals being scored by Team Melli. So is that something that you think is going to happen now? We can push forward offensively as well.
So I just wanted to add up on what Sahand said. For Hajsafi, I think it's ever since I remember him playing, there has been this debate whether he's better at playing as a fullback or whether he can perform better up front, either as a winger or in the midfield. And based on the team that he plays in or the coaches that he's working with, he has been switching between these two positions. And most of the times the conclusion has been that he is a better player offensively. And the only stellar performance that I can remember from him as a fullback is the World Cup. And as Sahand mentioned correctly, it was because he had a lot of cover, and then I think his duties were more limited to just defensive duties, and then he did not have many offensive duties, so he stayed back more, and then he could concentrate on those defensive duties more. But now that he has more room for going forward, I think that's where the problem becomes more visible. That if he has offensive duties and he's pushing forward, then he does not cover well when he comes back. So that's something that has been going on, and it shows that he's a really talented player and he's a really versatile player who can play at both positions. And something that I really feel empathy for him is that he's one of our captains, and his position is still undecided. So he just keeps switching between those two positions. And I think as a player, at some stage, you would just like to be established at a certain position.
Well, on that note, I think we should briefly mention Team Melli's next game against Iraq on the 16th of January. I think it will be an interesting game. We just need a point to top the group there on goal difference, and it will be very interesting to see how we play, particularly after what happened 4 years ago in the Asian Cup in Australia when we lost to Iraq on penalties after a controversial red card for Merdad Pouladi. So yeah, I think the players will have some hunger and some fire in their belly, don't you think, Arya?
Yeah, Morteza, if you're still there, give us a shout. Oh, he's just left. Okay, we'll add him back in the call. Yeah, I think that we have a chance to. It's a bit of redemption for us against Iraq. I think that we need to really win this game. I think because a lot of people are saying Vietnam and Yemen are weak sides. They're not the strongest sides in Asia. But I think that Iraq's a side that you can maybe say, okay, they've got some players playing, in top teams, not top teams, but not bad teams. Esteghlal and Persepolis, Bashar Rassan playing in Persepolis, Humam Tariq playing in Esteghlal. They got a few good players. They can say they're a respectable side. So if Iran can get a win against them and a really solid victory, we can, I think we can silence some critics. There's always going to be critics in Iran. People, criticizing, Dejagah's too old, he shouldn't be playing. Hoysafi's not a left back. About that, I want to just quickly say, in my opinion, Hoysafi is a great footballer, but he's always showed that his best performances for Team Melli were in the midfield. And that's where he should be playing, in my opinion. Murad Mohammadi is an actual left back, and that's where I think he should be starting for the national team. And the final point is, if Iran beat Iraq, I think that they've shown that they have beaten a side that are respectable in Asia.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all expect 3 points in that game, and we shouldn't expect anything less. And we want to win, particularly after what happened 4 years ago, and then go through with 9 out of 9 points, and hopefully Osman will get a few more goals to his name. Now, on final note, before we close up for this pod, Sand, can you give us your thoughts on the Iraq game and how you think it should pan out, and who perhaps should be starting, particularly in that midfield, and with regards to Torabi as well? I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so Iraq always are a challenge for us. They always seem to up their game when they play us. As Arya mentioned, they have some players in Esteghlal and Persepolis that are good players. They have Ali Adnan, who plays in Atlanta and the Syria, who's a good player. They have some other players in various smaller European leagues and Middle Eastern leagues. But besides the players, it just seems that as a team, they always come together for the challenge of playing Iran. And, it's always been a hard game for us. But I think that it's going to be the most interesting point from this game is going to be the team selection. I think that Queiroz has a lot of things to think about here. We have Haj Safi, who's on a yellow card. Another yellow would mean that he's unavailable for the round of 16 match. And the same goes for Taremi. We have Dejagah, who just completed 2 games in quick succession, and the last one he played 90 minutes, so he might be feeling a little tired. Similarly with Vahida Amiri. And we had Hossein Kanonizadeh, who came in for Majid Hosseini, and obviously Majid Hosseini has been so good for Trabzonspor in Turkey. His team is in second or third place, and he's been one of the best players all year. And he's been great for Team Melli too, but it was a bit shaky versus Yemen. So it'll be interesting to see if Queiroz reintroduces him into the lineup. And also if he's going to play with Milad or with Ehsan Hajsafi. So I think those are all potential storylines to look at. On the Torabi point, I would hope that Torabi starts because his performances have been really impressive recently. And really, ever for most of his Team Melli career, he's always, even if he's not been the first option or even the second option, whenever he has played, he's been very clinical and very influential and a positive impact on the team. And even Queiroz coming out saying after the game against Vietnam that he is shocked that Torabi is still in Asia. And I think that I would start him. I would start him and Qudus and Azmoun together. I would probably start Taremi too, but obviously he's on a yellow, but I don't think he should really be getting into too many more close yellow cards. But I think Hajsafi, could be taken out for Milad Mohammadi, and I would prefer to see Majid Hosseini also reintroduced into the lineup. And I think with that team, we should have a good chance of finishing the group strong and beating Iraq. And I think probably the most important thing for us is to not get engaged in any of the mental games that the Iraqis play, which is usually one of our big weaknesses versus Arab teams. I think if Team Melli can steer clear of that, then we should be able to get the win.
I agree with you. I think we should definitely expect to get the win and get those 3 points. And what you've touched upon is the strength and depth that the squad now has, with more than one good player in every position that can fill in for anyone who's suspended or is a booking away from being suspended or is injured or just fatigued. And it'll be interesting to see whether Torabi starts. So we very much look forward to the game on the 16th on Wednesday against Iraq, and we will be discussing that game and reviewing that game in greater detail following the match. And we hope to
just quickly add, Ashkan, sorry about that. I want to say a big thanks to Morteza for coming on. I know you got cut off there when you were speaking, but I really appreciate your insight. And Sahand as well, great of you to come on and give us, a lot of great information about the team. And then Sarah, if you don't know, is a comedian who's got quite a lot of had a lot of contact with Azmoun over the years, and it was great to have her on and give her thoughts. But Atbin, great job on the hosting side.
Great, thank you, Arya. I want to thank you from Gol Bezan to all our listeners for listening and continuing to subscribing to us on iTunes and on SoundCloud, and as well, absolutely thank you to all our speakers today, Morteza, Sarah and Sahand. Thank you for your thoughts and your insights and for contributing to the pod today. So we hope to have you on in the future, and thank you very much.
Hi, this is Kat, and you're listening to Gol Bezan, and I hope you continue listening to their amazing podcast. Thank you all for the support. Love you, Gol Bezan.